Hello, this is for Chapter 4 of the textbook, Business Challenges Within the 7 Domains of IT Responsibility. So the learning objective of this Chapter 4 is to analyze how security policies help mitigate risks and support business processes within various domains of a typical IT infrastructure. The key concepts that we will look at in this chapter are the 7 domains of a typical IT infrastructure, aligning security policies with business requirements, top business risks in each domain, common security controls for each domain, and mitigating risks within domains with security policies. So the 7 domains of a typical IT infrastructure. And there are different ways to group security policies. The book has decided to group them into these 7 domains, and they have different target audiences. So domain 1 is the user domain. Those are the customers and employees, people who are going to make use of the system. Domain 2 is the workstation domain, and that could be a laptop, or it could be a desktop computer or a smartphone. The LAN domain, number 3, that's the local area network. The 4th domain is the LAN to WAN domain, so that's the connection between the LAN and the WAN. The 5th one is the wide area network, and the internet is an example of a wide area network. The 6th one is the remote access. A virtual private network is an example of a way in which people would access the resources within an organization as a remote access domain. And the 7th one is a system and application. Those are technologies to collect, process, and store information. So why organize policies by domains? So you can identify areas of policy overlap. There's examination of areas that might otherwise be overlooked, and align the entire IT environment with business objectives. And security policies for each domain support layered defenses and improve the security posture of the organization. So it allows different groups or different policies for the different parts of those domains. So your user policies for the users is going to be very different than what you might have for policies for the applications. So it allows you kind of a way to organize and divide up what's needed for the company. So role security policies per domain. So first one for the user, how end users access information resources. How do you control what someone can get access to? How you make sure they don't get access to what they don't need to have access to. The second one, workstation, management and security of computer devices used by end users. Again, it could be a desktop, a laptop, or a smartphone. And then the LAN, you manage and security of the local area network, and also the wide area network, secure of data in the wide area network. Then you have the LAN to WAN bridge, manage and secure infrastructure controlling the communication between the LAN and the WAN. In this case, it could be from the company's network. How do you control the information going out to the internet? And then the remote access, how end users can connect to the LAN, how someone working remotely can get access to resources within the company. and the system and application, collecting, processing, and storing of information. So the domain security control examples for the user domain would be the authentication, ID and password, or whatever authentication is used to get into the system. User workstation, LAN, and remote access, so authentication and access control. For the workstation domain, you have the central managed system. So a CMS is used to manage the central workstations. So you want to have them, all those workstations can be managed centrally. So if you need to do updates, put bugs, updates for bugs in the system, you can do that from a centrally managed system. Then the LAN domain, that's by network type, which can be flat or segmented. We'll look at that a little bit more, but flat has few controls, and segmented restricts network traffic. Then you have the WAN domain, the internet, basically with access to company resources by use of a virtual private network. So someone could log in through a virtual private network, a VPN, and get access to company resources. And then that bridge from the LAN to the WAN, you have a demilitarized zones, or a DMZ. And that's a subnetwork that exposes a company's external facing resources to the internet. It can be outside the firewall, or the DMZ can sit between two different firewalls. And then the system applications, like a ERP or a CRM system. Authorization and access control. Basically, it determines who has access to what. The who can be a user or a device or a service. For example, a role-based access control, or RBAC, assign permissions to roles, assign individuals to those roles. The benefit, it reduces administrative overhead and improves compliance through reduced complexity. Another example is the attribute-based access control, or ABAC. It's dynamic rather than static roles. Roles expressed in business terms, making them more understandable. This does require a rules engine that will contain the business rules that will control that access. So the role-based access control concept. So at the individual access, you have the managers with elevator rights, and then they have staff members, and those staff members have access to the various applications, to their workstations or laptops or databases and that type of information. At the role-based access, you have the roles are managed based upon the role as opposed to being by an individual. So a central management system enforces security policies through central management of controls and configuration. So using that, you can have inventory management, you can do discovery of software and data, you can patch the system, control help desk, computer logs, and also manage security. And as we mentioned, the types of LANs, there's flat versus segmented. The flat has no controls on network traffic. All network traffic will be visible. Relies only on security of servers and workstations. It is considered to be a less secure type. Then there's segmented. Uses network devices to restrict traffic has more layers of security, has more depth in its defense, and it is considered to be more secure type of LAN. And then for that demilitarized zone, it sits between secure LAN and unsecured WAN, acts as a buffer, contains servers that provide public access, such as web servers and portals. So looking at that picture, you have the internet with a firewall. And this example of this DMZ does have two separate firewalls. So if they're on the internet, you go through the firewall to the DMZ as a web server. And then there's another firewall on the other side of the DMZ that goes into the network of the company. So virtual private network, the type of wide area network, public internet, and private WAN. The VPNs provide encrypted tunnels through non-secure networks. That is, you could be working remotely, use a VPN, create an encrypted tunnel so that you can have secure access to resources at your company. Benefits is cheaper than the private WAN, and it can be rapidly deployed. Authentication, it's a validation of credentials, something you know, such as your ID and password. It could be something you have, such as a token, a smart card. Nowadays, most organizations have a smartphone app that you can use as a token for validation. Or it could be something that you are, or biometrics. You could have a fingerprint. So if you have a smartphone where you use your fingerprint or face recognition, that's an example of something that you are to be used as validation of credentials. You have a single factor sign-on, so that'd be one type of credential, usually an ID or a password, ID and password. It could be two type. So I could be using an ID and password and then also needing a token in order to log on to get access to resources. Banks are using that more and more often now. And there's multi-factor, where there's more than one type of credential. But the method must suit the business context. Tokens plus a user ID and password to access research and development workstations. Maybe just a user ID and password to access a website. Mitigate the risk through the policy. So each of the 7 IT domains have different types of risks associated with them. A policy can reduce or mitigate these risks. Each policy must address as many risks in that domain as possible. And policies may cross the various domains. So identify business risks. Risks vary by industry and by organization. Many business requirements follow the data through the 7 domains. So you need to map the challenges and risks to those domains. And some challenges are common. So top business risks and mitigations. So in the user domain, the challenge would be getting employees to comply with policies. How you mitigate that is through training, enforcement, and reward. Next domain would be workstation. You want to prevent security breaches. The way to mitigate that risk is through technical security controls and secure configurations. In the LAN domain, the challenge could be availability of the network, and there a mitigating way could be acceptable use policies. For the LAN to WAN domain, the challenge would be securing that DMZ. Way to mitigate that would be configuration and testing and monitoring. In the WAN domain, the challenge would be reliability, fast, cost-effective, and secure access to the internet. Way to mitigate that is by configuration, technical security controls, roles, and responsibilities. And then in the remote access domain, the challenge would be securing the organization's data on mobile devices. Way to mitigate that risk is by addressing emerging technologies and personally owned devices. And then in the system and application domain, challenge is preventing data breaches. Way to mitigate that, data loss prevention, regulation of data in storage, and when it's being transmitted. And then data loss protection, also called data leakage protection. Goal of the program is to prevent confidential information from leaving the organization accidentally or maliciously. For example, if you have a bank and you have a customer service line, people in that customer service line have access to credit card numbers, to account numbers. How do you make sure you control any type of loss from that possibility from people within the organization? So you have layers of defenses. You have inventory, identification of data at rest, and monitoring of data in motion. Who took a look at that credit card number? And also encryption. Encryption of data outside the network, particularly for mobile devices. So in summary, the role of each domain, we looked at the role of each domain of a typical IT infrastructure. We looked at identification of business challenges and examples of common business challenges, risks, and those mitigations for those risks. Mitigation of risk by policy, by looking at it through the lens of those various domains. Examples of those domain security controls, and rationale for organizing policies by domain. Thank you.